The Battle of Plataea, fought in 479 BCE near the city of Plataea in Boeotia, was a pivotal engagement during the Second Persian invasion of Greece. This decisive confrontation saw a coalition of Greek city-states, including Sparta, Athens, Corinth, and Megara, clash with the forces of the Persian Empire under King Xerxes I. In the wake of the Greek naval triumph at Salamis in 480 BCE, the tide of war had turned, but Persia had not yet been defeated. Xerxes, the great king of Persia, humiliated by the loss at sea, withdrew the bulk of his forces to Asia. But he left behind a powerful army under the command of his trusted general, Mardonius. This was no mere rearguard. Mardonius had at his disposal a diverse and battle-hardened force, composed of elite Persian infantry, cavalry, and a swath of contingents drawn from across the vast expanse of the empire, from Bactria to Lydia, from Egypt to Thrace. His orders were clear: complete what Xerxes had begun. Greece, fractured and fierce, was to be brought to heel. Mardonius chose to winter in Thessaly, and as spring approached, he made a decisive move, marching into Boeotia, where he fortified a position near the small city of Plataea. His aim was strategic. Plataea lay in central Greece, near the edge of Theban territory, a city loyal to Persia. It offered Mardonius a favorable location from which he could monitor and challenge the southern Greek states, particularly Athens and Sparta, and entice or coerce others to defect. The Athenians, having seen their city burned just a year earlier, refused Mardonius's diplomatic overtures. Bribes, promises of autonomy, and even threats fell flat. Their response was resolute. They turned again to Sparta. And though the Spartans had shown a hesitancy to campaign so far north after the winter, the looming threat galvanized them. Thus, the Greek polis, despite internal rivalries, assembled a massive allied army under the command of Pausanias, the Spartan regent. This coalition force, Spartans, Athenians, Corinthians, Megarians, and many others, moved north into Boeotia to confront the Persian host. It was an uneasy alliance, a gathering of cities that only a year earlier might have gone to war with each other. But under the shadow of Persian domination, unity prevailed. The armies encamped opposite one another near the Asopus River. For days, both sides maneuvered, tested, and skirmished, waiting for a break in the stalemate. Each was aware of the other's strengths. The Greeks relied on their disciplined phalanx and heavy hoplite armor. The Persians, on their swift cavalry and archery. Mardonius sought to exploit Greek divisions and bait them into a premature assault. The Greeks, in turn, waited for favorable ground. It was a confrontation shaped as much by diplomacy and psychological endurance as by arms. And as the tension mounted across the plains near Plataea, it became clear one side would not leave that field intact. The confrontation at Plataea was not a clash between equals. It was a meeting of fundamentally different military cultures, each drawing on its own traditions of warfare. On one side stood the Greek coalition, an uneasy yet determined alliance of over 20 city-states. Their combined strength numbered roughly 80,000 men, though only about half were heavy infantry, hoplites clad in bronze and leather, armed with long spears and round shields. These were citizen soldiers, many fighting for their own land, their own cities, their own freedom. Sparta led the coalition, contributing 5,000 full citizens, Spartiates, supported by 35,000 helots serving as lightly armed attendants. Alongside them came contingents from Corinth, Megara, Aegina, and notably Athens, which sent 8,000 hoplites of its own. Though the Spartans held tactical command, it was the cohesion and discipline of the whole alliance that would be tested. Opposite them was the army of Mardonius, vast, diverse, and drawn from the furthest reaches of the Persian Empire. Though Persian numbers vary across ancient sources, modern estimates suggest Mardonius had between 70,000 and 120,000 troops at his command. Among them were elite Persian immortals, skilled cavalry units from Bactria and Sogdia, archers from India, javelin throwers from Ethiopia, and Greek auxiliaries, primarily Boeotians, Thessalians, and Macedonians, who had allied with Persia either by force or calculation. But numerical superiority did not guarantee advantage. The Persian military doctrine emphasized mobility, cavalry strikes, and missile fire, tactics poorly suited to the rough, uneven terrain of central Greece. Their infantry, many equipped with wicker shields and shorter spears, struggled in close-quarters combat against the dense Greek phalanx. What Mardonius lacked in infantry strength, he hoped to offset through cavalry superiority. The Persian horsemen, some of the finest in the known world, were a crucial component of his strategy. Their swift attacks and harassment of supply lines posed a constant threat to the Greek positions. It was a stark contrast, a multi-ethnic imperial force relying on coordination across languages and tactics, versus a decentralized alliance bound together by urgency and shared resistance. One side fought to preserve an empire, the other to preserve their autonomy. Both would soon find themselves locked in combat where discipline, cohesion, and battlefield leadership would determine the fate of more than just an army. For over a week, the two armies faced each other in a tense stalemate across the Asopus River. Neither side dared to commit to a full engagement. Mardonius, eager to break the impasse, launched repeated cavalry raids to harass Greek supply lines, targeting water sources and foraging routes. The disruption began to take its toll. Greek morale was fraying. Supplies dwindled. Under pressure, the Allied commanders made a fateful decision to shift their position during the night. But in the darkness, coordination among the city-states broke down. Units became separated. Pausanias and the Spartans remained behind to cover the retreat, but many contingents, including the Athenians, lost contact with one another. From the Persian camp, Mardonius saw what appeared to be a disorderly withdrawal. He interpreted it not as a maneuver, but as a rout. Seizing what he believed was a divine opportunity, he ordered an immediate attack. The Persian advance crashed against the Spartan position near the foothills of Mount Cithaeron. The Greeks, though partially isolated, were not unprepared. The Spartans, supported by the Tegeans, stood their ground, absorbing the initial assault. Persian infantry, lacking heavy armor and trained primarily for speed and missile fire, struggled to penetrate the dense phalanx. Their famed cavalry, hampered by rough terrain and unable to encircle, could not turn the tide. At the height of the engagement, Mardonius himself entered the fray, directing his forces from atop a white horse, surrounded by his elite bodyguard. But amidst the chaos, he was struck down, either by a thrown stone or a spear, depending on the account. His death shattered Persian coordination. What had begun as a bold offensive collapsed into panic. As word spread through the ranks, Persian resistance buckled. The Greeks pushed forward, driving their enemies back toward their fortified encampment. The Persians fled behind their wooden palisade, but the psychological blow had already landed. Soon, the Athenians, now reunited with the main force, launched an assault on the Persian camp's walls. The barrier was breached. What followed was a slaughter. Persian soldiers, disoriented and leaderless, were cut down en masse. Few escaped. In a matter of hours, what had been a test of patience and logistics became one of the most decisive victories in Greek military history. By the end of the day, the battlefield at Plataea was strewn with the dead. Persian casualties were staggering. Herodotus claims that out of the tens of thousands under Mardonius's command, only a few thousand survived. While ancient numbers often stretch credibility, modern historians agree on one point. The Persian force was decimated. Their elite units, including the immortals and the cavalry, had been neutralized or destroyed. Mardonius himself, the architect of Xerxes' lingering hopes in Greece, lay lifeless among them. His gilded armor shattered, his command obliterated. In contrast, Greek losses were modest, especially given the scale of the engagement. Spartan and Tegean hoplites bore the brunt of the early fighting, suffering the highest casualties on the Greek side. Athenian forces, who arrived in time to storm the Persian camp, took fewer losses in open combat. Though exact figures are debated, the casualty ratio underscored the tactical mismatch. Persian light infantry and archers were no match for the disciplined and heavily armed phalanx formations. The consequences extended far beyond the fields of Boeotia. In the same campaign season, Greek forces achieved another crucial victory at Mycale on the Ionian coast, destroying what remained of the Persian fleet. These twin blows, one on land, one at sea, shattered Persia's ability to wage war in Greece. The grand expedition launched by Xerxes had ended not in conquest, but in catastrophe. For the Greek world, Plataea became more than a military success. It was a symbolic reckoning. It marked the definitive end of the Second Persian invasion and emboldened the idea that free polis, however fractious, could repel the might of an empire. In its aftermath, the Delian League began to take shape under Athenian leadership, transforming the defensive alliance into an engine of political power. Sparta, though hailed for its leadership at Plataea, would gradually retreat into isolation. And for Persia, the defeat at Plataea marked the beginning of a long retraction. The great king would never again attempt a full-scale invasion of the Greek mainland. From the dust of a shattered camp near a minor city, a new political order began to stir, one forged not by empire, but by defiance. We'd love to hear your thoughts on possible future topics. What areas of human evolution would you like to explore next? Leave your suggestions in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. As always, our references and further reading are listed in the description below if you'd like to dive deeper into the subject. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.